Hello folks, Alex here. This is Alex Unabridged, and today it's my wrap up for February's Adventures in Genre, and February was for fantasy. So welcome back to the channel if that is the case. Yes, February was for fantasy. This is Adventures in Genre episode 2. Generally a good month. Before I begin, I just want to go through a little bit of a primer in terms of I'm going to start rating things a little bit better rather than just going, yeah, it's all right. Or yeah, it was great. So I've just kind of been through using a sort of a 1 to 5 kind of rating system, and I'll just kind of go through, sort of what I mean for each score point, if you like. So starting at number 1, this is a big fat nope. Basically, this means that I hated it, that I finished it. Generally, if I DNF something, I won't rate it. That's not fair on the book. So I finished it, but I really don't have anything good to say about it. It'll be one of those. There will be very few that fall into this category because generally I will be able to try and find something redeeming about a book. It's very rare that I can't find anything positive. But there will occasionally be some books that fall into that nope category. 2 out of 5 basically means, meh, bit blah. It wasn't terrible, so it can't get put in the 1-star category if you like. But it wasn't good. It's got some redeeming features, but not enough at all to recommend it. It'll be, again, there'll probably be some in the future that go into this. Fortunately, none in this video. 3 out of 5 is decent. It's an enjoyable read. I had a good time with it. There are some issues. But, it might be something that I would recommend for a bit of fun, or even something that I'm kind of like, not sure if I could recommend it or not. But I still enjoyed the experience. It's just not one that I would go back and read again. And if it's, say, part of a series, I might read more to see if I like the others better, but it might also be one where I kind of go, yeah, maybe that's not for me. So yes, it's a very middle groundy one, 3, as you'd expect. 4 out of 5 means, yeah, great stuff. Really, really good book. Definitely ones that I'd recommend, and ones that I would probably read again as well. But it's not quite good enough to get onto my sort of top, favourites kind of list. It's close, but not quite. There's a lot that I like, but again, the favourites, the 5s, are reserved for the absolute cream of the crop. So yes, 5 basically just means top notch, awesome, loved it, brilliant. Straight onto my favourites. Would recommend it absolutely. Want everybody to read it immediately. Totally in love with the book. So again, I don't know how rare this will be. Again, I can get maybe a little bit over enthusiastic about things that I like, or I will kind of sort of let some issues go if it's something that's just kind of grabbed. It's about how it makes me feel, basically. So there might be some issues with a book, but if it's made me really feel a certain way I've enjoyed it so much that it's been such a good reading experience, then it will get a 5 for me. So on to the books that I got through. I will start with the one that unfortunately was a DNF, and that is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. But it's not a DNF because I didn't like it. It's a DNF because the audio narration, it was an audiobook, the narration was not good for me. I listened to about half of it. So we're probably talking about 12 hours worth because it's quite a long book. So yeah, I listened to about half of it before I called it quits. And I DNF'd it because I found myself kind of avoiding listening to it, and that's never a good sign. And I was kind of wasting time basically, and kind of feeling like, oh no, I need to finish this one before I go on to something else, and then just as I say, it was just avoiding it because I wasn't enjoying the experience. I will go back to it in physical book form. But for this month, I'm trying to save pennies, and I didn't want to have to shell out for another book, and they didn't have it in my local library. So I will go back to this one, but it'll be in a physical book or an ebook form eventually. My reason for DNFing it in terms of the narration is there's a lot of description of the action sequences. There's quite a lot of detail in the description of the action. And the narrator just sounded like he was reading from a flipping instruction manual or something. It was so flat, so without feeling, that I just found myself getting bored with it and just tuning out completely. And you want with the action sequences, you want to be enthralled. You want to be kind of on the edge of your seat or what have you. And especially if it's an audiobook, for me, it should be a performance. There should be emphasis there. There should be excitement there. And there just wasn't. So his character voices weren't too bad. There was a few slightly dodgy British accents. But his character voices weren't too bad. And there were some elements of his descriptive stuff about the world that were okay. But it was the action that really got me. It's like there was a lot of stuff where there just felt like there was no feeling there, and I lost interest. I have to put that one down to a narrator that just was not fit for me. But from what I read, I did really like I liked the ideas, the concept behind it. It's kind of a what would happen if the bad guy actually won. The big bad. So if you think like Sauron or something like that in Lord of the Rings, what would happen? What would a world look like if the dark side had actually won? What kind of world would that create? And so you've got kind of this setup of sort of the nobility and the lord, the Dark Lord, who kind of rule everything, and then everybody else, the Scar as they're called in this, who are essentially slaves, in a lot of ways. They suffer a lot of abuse. They have a lot of they have really bad lives in terms of there's not a lot they can really kind of aspire to. There's either basically you kind of get your head down and you get on with the jobs you've been given to do, or you become kind of a criminal, if you like, and you kind of stick two fingers up at the at the world that way. And so this story is it's essentially a heist story, from what I can tell, in terms of the half that I've read. I got well enough into it to kind of see roughly where it was going. It's a heist, which I really like. I really like the setup of it. The characters are really interesting. Got some diverse characters in terms of sort of backgrounds, personalities, etc. One of our main ones is a young woman, Vin, who is kind of running with a band of petty criminals, thieves, and she gets kind of swept into this plot, this heist plot, and And, you know, as I say, it's, as far as I got, it's kind of starting her off on her kind of training with the magic of the world. And that's something that I really did like in what I read. It's called Allomancy, and it's based around metals and kind of the ingestion of metals and burning, as they say, these metals in the body produces different effects, and it enables them to have kind of different magical abilities. And it's a really interesting system of magic, and I want to know more about it. And so in that respect, I am that's why I want to, you know, kind of go and get the book at some point and finish it, because it is intriguing. There was definitely enough there to make me want to go back and finish. But as I say, this one I just have to put down to a poor narrator, or at least a narrator that I personally didn't get on with. But yes, so I will go back to that at some point, and when I do, I will report back. I will do a little review type thing on that separately when I actually get round to reading it. So the second one that I read was Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This was also an audiobook read by Travis Baldree, who I believe is an audiobook narrator, professional audiobook narrator anyway, and I have to say it shows. This one is it's a cozy fantasy. It follows a nice lady orc who, after years and years of being a barbarian, professional barbarian, of, you know, bounty hunting and generally slashing things to bits with a big sword, retires essentially, gets sick of that life and retires to go and open a coffee shop. But yeah, so she's found, you know, the joys of coffee whilst on her travels as a barbarian, and that's what she decides she wants to do instead of hack and slash. So she has to, you know, find a shop, you know, renovate it, find staff, all that kind of thing. And she, you know, finds friends and essentially a found family along the way. There are some stakes, as you would, you know, you need in any book, but they are, you know, low stakes. There is conflict between, you know, kind of different sort of character groups, sort of factions, if you like, in the city, and, you know, there's a shady underbelly that could make things difficult for her, and all of that. But yeah, it's very much a cozy book, and I flipping loved it. This was a big, warm hug of a book. This, in terms of ratings, this one, I think probably if I was doing kind of, you know, trying to do sort of a critical review or something like that, I would probably put it in a, you know, sort of 4 out of 5, great stuff kind of thing. Yeah, it's, you know, I don't know whether it necessarily, you know, critically speaking, earn itself the 5 stars in terms of the writing. But for me, from a personal opinion, and that's what this is about, you know, this is my stuff, you know, what I've enjoyed, what, you know, me, you know, having little adventures into new things. This is a 5 for me. I would be very surprised if this does not make my favourite books of this year. Favourite books that I've read this year. I mean, I think it came out last year. It's just, you know, a fuzzy, heartwarming story. And, you know, in the cold, dark winter month of February, this was exactly what I needed. It's a very sweet story. The characters were, you know, as I say, they were well-rounded, but they were lovely. You know, they were really, really likeable characters. The environments, you know, the world is well realised. It is very much kind of, you know, high fantasy sort of world. But it's, you know, the description of the city and the, you know, the kind of the people, etc. The cultures is good. It's you can easily visualize it. I say you can imagine things very well, particularly the coffee shop, and the work that goes into making it a success. It made me really flipping hungry though. There's a lot of baked goods. They have one of the characters is a little kind of, it's called a ratkin, so a little kind of rodent rat like dude, and he's the baker that they employ, Thimble, and he makes amazing pastries, and yeah, it's just the descriptions of these pastries. I just wanted to eat. I wanted baking every time I listened to this. It's funny as well. It's got some good sharp wit, and some silliness in there as well. It can be quite dry, and I just found myself smiling whenever I listened to it. It was one that I absolutely wanted to listen to. It's only short. It's not a long book anyway, and I was kind of disappointed when it finished, just in terms of like I'd enjoyed the experience so much, and that kind of the feeling that I got listening to it. It's got a little, very, very light romance in it, and it is a queer romance, which is great. It's lovely to see that. It's a very sweet romance. There's no smut whatsoever. It is it's about the people and personalities and finding someone. It is a surprisingly engaging book about someone opening a coffee shop. I mean, I love coffee, I need coffee, and I love baking, obviously, but I kind of thought, oh, when I first came across it, I thought, oh, will it be engaging enough if it's just about somebody opening a business, but yeah, it absolutely is. It's really well realised. Yeah, the tagline of it being high fantasy, low stakes. The low stakes is true, definitely, but that doesn't make it boring in the slightest. As I say, there is conflict in it. You've got the equivalent of the kind of the local mafia who like require tribute. Plus, you've got an old sort of colleague, if you like, from Viv's barbarian days, who wants to kind of mess up what Viv's built with the business. And Viv herself has some secrets which you kind of sort of find more out about throughout the book, and how those kind of add into the conflict. What else did I like? The language itself isn't too high fantasy, because sometimes I struggle with that in some certainly some older high fantasy. This is kind of a mix, really. It's like there is some there's some stuff you'd expect, like things like the days of the week and stuff are different, and there's names for certain things, or the world has a certain feel to it, and the way it's described, there's certain kind of sort of language that you'd expect with high fantasy. But there's also modern language in it. There's certainly some modern swearing in it as well, which is used sparingly, but to great effect. Actually, it's when it does happen, for me it made me laugh, and it just kind of made me be able to kind of, I suppose, identify with them or relate to the text a bit more. It just kind of situated the characters sort of as modern characters in that respect. So yeah, it wasn't overused, I don't think. I think it was used very well, but the modern language, particularly the modern swearing. But yeah, it has all the trappings of high fantasy. The environment, the cities, the races in it. You've got elves and orcs and one of the staff members in the coffee shop is a succubus. You've got the ratkin. you know, you've got magic in it. You have got some magic in it. You know, discussion of like, you know, ley lines and wards and things like that. Got magical creatures in it. You know, it's got all of that stuff, and so it feels kind of familiar. I think, you know, I haven't read a lot of high fantasy, but I've watched quite a bit, in terms of film, TV, that kind of thing, and so yeah, it does kind of has that distinct feel, and yeah, the length was good. As much as I kind of say I was disappointed when I finished it, I think it kind of left me wanting more, and that's good. And if this becomes a series, even if it's not necessarily following Viv again, or it's, you know, it's you know, following other characters or set in this world, you know, if Travis Baldree is planning on doing a series of this sort of stuff, then it definitely kind of made me want to read more. I will undoubtedly be pre-ordering whatever whatever he brings out next. Certainly, if it's, as I say, if it's a continuation of this world, and I'll definitely read another book with these characters in it. And to be honest, I can't really think of anything I didn't like, which is why it has to go in the 5, you know, the 5-star, you know, top-notch category, because yeah, I really can't think of anything that I didn't like about it. It is what it is, and you know, it is just a lovely book. As I say, it was great fun and was just what I needed for this month. So, final one that I read was Stormfront by Jim Butcher, so the first in the Dresden Files series. So a bit of urban fantasy. So this follows Harry Dresden, who is a wizard and a private investigator, kind of a sort of a bit more of an old school gumshoe tradition, sort of private detective, and it's set in Chicago, like sort of modern Chicago, where magic, you know, magical otherworldly kind of stuff exists as well. So you've got, you know, wizards, vampires, demons, etc. And Harry works sort of for private clients, but also with the Chicago police force. And he gets called in when there's been crimes that kind of can't be explained. You know, sort of there's some weird shit going on. This book's obviously a kind of it's a setting up, I think, of the world and the characters and how, you know, how the magic works. You know, what the kind of situation is in this version of Chicago, and it follows Harry looking into a series of murders that have been committed using magic, and he's employed by the police to help figure out what's happened and who done it, and also kind of follows his sort of relationships to other characters within the world. So yeah, this one I'm going to give a 3 out of 5 too. It was decent. It was enjoyable. I liked it, but I kind of wanted to like it more. I think that's it. I like the concept a lot. I like things generally set in kind of our world, but with a twist. Like, I love Buffy, for instance. So it's like, you know, that is our world, but you've got vampires and demons and all that kind of stuff. Urban fantasy generally I do like. As I say, I've not read much, but in terms of TV, film, etc., I love it. Harry Dresden's a fun character. He's funny. He's kind of messy. He's kind of all over the place. He's got some, you know, some issues. Has an interesting past that's kind of delved into a little bit, and you know, an interesting personal situation that's kind of full of conflict. and that makes him engaging. His relationship to other characters is well introduced in this as well, I think. Like to characters like Murphy, he's the one of the cops that he works with primarily, and I want to kind of hear more of Murphy, and you've got some other very amusing sort of side characters in it, like Bob, who is, I think, essentially a spirit who lives or is contained in an old skull in Harry's lab, and kind of serves as a memory, as a hard drive really for like potions and spells, and kind of assists Harry when he's in his lab making stuff. I really liked Bob. Bob was highly amusing. The action sequences are good. They're really engaging. They're compelling, and there's stakes there definitely. I particularly liked a section where Harry goes to talk to a vampire, kind of a vampire madam, called Bianca. The description of both kind of the environment and the action and the character of Bianca were very good, and even just the conceptualization of the vampire, as an entity, as a being, for the world was good. It was kind of using traditional elements, but it didn't feel tired. There was enough new stuff there for me, and it was well described. It was well realized. So there was a lot to like about it. I think possibly part of my kind of feeling of wanting to like it more, again, might have had something to do with the narration, that whilst it wasn't bad, it wasn't great. It was James Marsters, who is Spike from Buffy, amongst other things. And I love James Marsters. Generally on what I've seen him in on TV shows, but his narration just lacked something. I think that's what it was. Certainly, he didn't vary voice very much for characters, for a lot of the characters, and yeah, it's first person narrative, so it's being told from Harry Dresden's kind of perspective. But even his voice for Dresden was a bit flat. I think he was trying to play it as that kind of very sort of low key, sort of noir gumshoe type, sort of character, which is fine, but it just kind of fell flat a bit for me. He was much better on some of the more eccentric characters, like Bob. Bob was, I think I like Bob so much because, Master's reading of him was funny, was really good. So I kind of wished he'd kind of put a bit more oomph into some of the other characters. But yeah, it's kind of, come on, James, I want a bit more. And just generally, I think the whole kind of story, the whole book kind of felt, I don't know what the word is, maybe a little bit messy. Maybe it jumped a bit, maybe a bit much for me. There's something I just can't really put my finger on that left me a little bit disappointed with it. As I say, I liked it, but I wanted to like it more. I think, to be honest, I need to keep going with the series and get into the world a bit more and get into the characters a bit more before I can make a judgment. So from what I hear, the other books in the series, it takes a few books to get into it from what I've heard. So maybe I think I just need to give it a chance to ramp up a little bit. But I probably will read them as physical books now, I think, because I've looked at the other audiobooks and they are all James Marsters. And yeah, I'm not convinced on him. I think I'll read a couple of them as physical books and see if that changes my mind on how much I like them. And if I find that actually I can get into them a lot easier as physical books, then I'll keep reading them, because they're not difficult ones to read. They'll be quick reads, I should think. So yes, so if you are a fan of the Dresden Files, or you have, or not, and you have read further into the series, I know there's a few people on BookTube that I've seen a few, videos of ones further down the line. So do please let me know, how they kind of go on, whether it's really worth me kind of continuing, or how many it kind of you would recommend I kind of get through to kind of really properly get into the series. Do drop your recommendations in the comments below. But yes, I think I will continue, and kind of give more of a chance to kind of get into these. But as I say, I did enjoy it. It was an enjoyable experience. So yes, so that is the 3 that I got through this month. All very different, all interesting in some way or another. Just disappointed that unfortunately the Brandon Sanderson was not a good experience in terms of the audiobook, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Sometimes you just got to call it quits when a narrator's doing your nut in. And as I say, I will get hold of that at some point, because I do want to finish that. It was intriguing to me. So yes, so next month, well, this month, because we're in March now, aren't we? So yes, this month, March, is for mystery. And I will be kind of tying this in a little bit with March Mystery Madness, because I thought, why not? I'm reading mystery anyway. So I'm going to try and get through 3 books again. I've already started the first one, and that is The Body in the Library by Agatha Christie. And that's an audiobook narrated by Stephanie Coles, who is wonderful. Perfect for a bit of Miss Marple. So yes, that's the first. The second one is The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. I have this both as a physical book and as an audiobook, neither of which I've read before, and I've had them for ages. And so I think it's probably about time that I get through it. It was one that always intrigued me, but for some reason I've just never picked them up. And I think I got it as a freebie on Audible, and I think the book is one that was bought as a random kind of present for me years ago. And so yeah, so I think I ought to get to that. So now is the time. Clear some of that backlog off the bookshelves. And I will be doing one of the following as well. And this will be a mood read pick, basically, the third one, dependent on what I'm in the mood for, whether I want something fun or whether I want something dark and gritty. So the fun one would be Death in Heels, The Dublin Drag Mysteries Book 1 by Kitty Murphy, which is on Kindle Unlimited. Both of these are Kindle Unlimited, which I have access to. And yeah, that one just sounded fun. And I do love drag and drag culture. From what I read about Kitty Murphy, she is a bi/queer author from Ireland. So that's the fun pick if I want something a little bit lighter. And then the dark and what sounds like a dark and gritty one is one called All the Pretty Boys by Jay Castelletti, who is a gay author from Australia. And yeah, this one looks quite a bit darker. So if I fancy something, a bit more serious, a bit more dark, then I will pick that one. So yes, those are what I will hopefully be reading this month. As I say, I've already started The Body in the Library, and that's a short one, so I should be on to The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle very soon. But yes, thank you very much for watching today. If you liked this video, please do consider giving us a like and for subscribing for more content, including obviously more adventures in genre coming soon. I will be back with more ramblings on all things bookish, but from me, for now, that's ta-ra.